Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of Personality Pick. Thank you so much for showing a lot of support on last week's episode with Trevor Peak. I know you guys really liked that one. And this week we have another great guest in Miranda Maverick. Miranda, how are you doing today?
Doing great, thanks. Been training pretty much all day, working on taxes, which is never fun, and
Oh
now
no.
doing this. So at least it's an upbeat from that.
Oh yeah. Anytime it's something else than taxes, then you're having a better time.
For sure.
First and foremost, congrats on booking your next fight with Jasmine
Thank
on June
you.
10th. How do you feel? I'm sure we'll get into it a little bit more as the interview goes on.
Yeah, I feel like we basically manifested that together. I called her out, I guess you'd say, after her last fight. She looked good. She did a good job against Gabriella. And I was like, hey, if you want to dance, let's dance, because it's been forever since I've had a fight. I've been waiting and waiting for an opponent. Everybody in the top 15 hasn't seemed to be an option, even though I've asked for pretty much everyone. And most of the girls who are free right now are in that top 5, and they don't want me jumping that high right now. So it is what it is. Even though she's not ranked, I'm really happy with that fight. Everybody kind of gives me shit for not calling out a ranked fighter, even though I have multiple times prior. But from my point of view, it's a money thing. I can get to the top anytime I want, and I have plenty of time to get there. I'm not even in my prime yet. And I think it's smarter to work my way up slowly and get as much money as I can in the meantime.
Yeah, there's a lot of fighters. There's a couple that are pretty popular as well that do the same exact thing. They, you know, take the money first and then they build their way up into that top 5, which I think is probably the right way to do it, as you're mentioning, because why not stack the money first and then when it comes time for those harder fights, you get paid a little bit more too. So both of you guys are happy.
Yeah, exactly. Why not get paid more to have those harder fights, especially once you're up there fighting people who already are getting paid way more. I'm fairly new to the UFC compared to a lot of the top 15ers that are in the flyweight division, and I know pretty much all of them are getting paid more than me right now. And there's no sense in it when I could just work my way up the same way.
100%. Now, I know there was tension between you and the UFC regarding the numbers when you renegotiated your last contract, but you went out there in your last fight and displayed your talent and proved that you're worth that number. How does it feel just showing it to the UFC and really proving that, yeah, you are worth the number that you asked for?
Yeah, I mean, really good. I unfortunately still didn't get the number I asked for because if you remember, I initially got the fight canceled.
Mhm.
Shanna hadn't made weight. She had to go to the hospital. And so I was pretty happy with the UFC because when that happened, when the cancellation happened, they went ahead and renewed my contract regardless and counted that basically as a fight and renegotiated. So we still met down the middle. Hopefully, I get to renegotiate again. Maybe not after this fight, but at least the next one after that.
I hope so too. How many fights do you have left remaining on your contract?
This will be my second one out of 4. So I'll have 3 left right now, 2 left after this fight.
Got you. Got you. Take me through the process of how this fight got booked. I know it was the Twitter stuff and the calling out that was going on. Tell me a little bit more. I'm sure the people want to know the behind the scenes of what went down to get this fight with Jasmine, given that she just recently fought.
Yeah, pretty simplistic. I basically called her out on Twitter and was like, hey, you did a great job. Like, I'd be ready to dance with you anytime. And then she responded, I'll lead, you follow. She responded pretty cleverly. And I was like, all right, let's get it done. Call Mick. And her management reached out to Mick, which is the matchmaker for our weight division. My management reached out to him and said Miranda wants to take that fight. And it took a week or so, but we got it. I was sent an offer. I said yes. And yeah, we both signed on the dotted line.
That's awesome. Now, I know you probably hope to fight a little bit sooner on in the year, but June, there's a lot of talented cards that there's going to be in June, and I know that's going to be part of a card.
Yeah, I mean,
Um,
now we don't know where it's going to be. There's suspicions that it'll be Canada since she was really
mhm,
asking for that, but nobody
yeah,
knows anything right now. UFC doesn't even know. You'd expect them to have more than a few months ahead figured out, but they do not. So I'm just waiting to figure out where that is. I already kind of have my family getting ready with passports just in case that is where it is, because it'll be my second time fighting on a numbered card, first time fighting in front of a non COVID crowd. So I fought, I guess, third time on a numbered card because my debut was in Abu Dhabi. And
Mhm.
then second one was against Aaron Blanchfield that I lost. And that was my first one in front of an audience, but it was a very, very small audience just because I guess COVID, it was one of their first ones,
Uh-huh.
one. So I'm really excited to finally be in front of fans wherever this one is. I'm sure it'll be packed seats and excited to see everybody.
Now, how would that add to your fight experience, given that there's a bigger crowd? Do you feel like that would overall help you, or do you eat off the crowd's energy when you're going out of there?
I wouldn't know, you know, I'm not sure yet. I think I need that experience first, but to be honest, I don't think it's going to bother me one way or another. I've always been the type, whether I was in Invicta or in the UFC, where I just focus on a couple voices and those are the ones in my corner, sometimes the other person's corners as well, so that I can hear what's going on. But aside from that, I just stay locked in. I would love to have the fans there. I think it'll help me as far as just having that support, having that energy going in, but I don't think it will affect my outcome at all.
Got it. Now, were there any other opponents in mind that you had uh, between you and the UFC that you were discussing before this fight came up and you guys agreed on the dotted line? Or was it mainly just someone out on Twitter and it was just as easy as that? Was there any behind the scenes talk with the UFC
There
regarding like anyone else?
can't really disclose anything, but I called out several people, especially asking my manager, asking the matchmaker, and it just kept getting turned down, or they wouldn't want to fight, or whatever else. To mention something I can mention, like Misha Tate was an option. She said she wanted an opponent. That obviously didn't end up happening, and now she wants to move back to 135. Molly McCann a long time ago was an option. She said no to that. The management, everybody said no to that basically because they want her to get, from my point of view, a better fight or two under her belt before she gets her butt beat again. But I'll be waiting if she ever gets back up to the top, which I doubt. Um, Several people. JoJo was one that I called out after my last fight. She was actually a teammate slash coach of the last girl that I fought. She said no. Fought, I think, Carolina, somebody else. But yeah, there's been so many girls. I would love that Macy rematch at some point. That's a girl who's just been running from me, and I understand why, but I'd love that rematch at any point.
Yeah, that was actually something I was going to ask you. The Macy rematch. I know that's been something that's been on your mind. I I'm not gonna say what I feel about the fight. I think he did get robbed, but it is what it is in this game. Things happen. Uh, Question for you here from one of the viewers. How do you think this fight plays out between you and Jasmine? Where do you feel like you have an edge?
I feel like I have an edge everywhere, and that's not me trying to be cocky. I just think it's the truth. Her
Love.
wrestling seems to be her strength, but I also have really good wrestling, as I showed in my last couple fights and fights before the UFC. My jujitsu is extremely better than hers. I have no doubt about that. My striking is exponentially better than hers. We watched Gabriella just throw bombs at her, and she didn't really know what to do other than push her against the cage. Her fight against Natalia Silva, she was out volumed, out speed, just outclassed in
Mhm.
general. And I think that's what she's going to feel like in this fight too. I plan on just drowning her in everything.
Now, a lot of people see you to be the ground game player, this very strong ground game player. What would you say is the most underrated part about your game, your mixed martial arts game as a whole?
Everybody just sees the last fight. That's how the mixed martial arts game is. That's
Uh-huh.
that's how everybody is. A lot of fans are that way, especially if they're not like true martial artists themselves and just watch it on a screen. They only remember the last thing. So leading up to the UFC, before I made my debut, I was considered basically only a grappler. Only had my wrestling and grappling. Then I get to the UFC. I made my debut and showed off the striking. Got a TKO in the first round via doctor stoppage. My second fight was via Jillian Robertson, who's a big grappler, and so I kept it on the feet, beat her up on the feet. And until that point, or even the Macy Barber fight was mostly on the feet. The Aaron Blanchfield fight, I got beat on the ground. So until then, everybody was like, "Oh, Miranda Maverick's a striker. She only knows how to strike." And it was really funny to me because I had never been called a striker in my entire career. And I was like, "Yeah, I'm a striker. Yeah." And now it's right back to the grappling, just because the last 2 fights have been pretty grappling heavy. And I wanna just be considered a well-rounded fighter in total, like, rarely do you hear that being thrown around. And I want it to be said that I have my striking good enough to set up my ground game that is also good. I always have places to work. I'm not saying that. I can improve in every area. I've been improving on my ground game, especially from bottom, and my wrestling ever since the Aaron Blanchfield fight. It really showed me holes in my game that I had just never been put there before, even by teammates. And it showed a lack in my training. And so I went back to the drawing board and we worked on it like nonstop for 6 months straight. And now I feel very confident that no one can just hold me down. I can get up, I can fight off my back, etc. And so, yeah, although I do have weaknesses in terms of just needing to get better in every area, I don't think there's any one specific place that I'm weak.
Good answer, and you highlighted the most important thing, which is recency bias when it comes to MMA. You see this happen all the time. You see a really good fighter fight someone who's more green, more on the newer side, and then they're like, okay, this is be something to watch out for in the division. They're gonna go far, but then next fight, something else happens. They show the holes. So recency bias is a really big thing when it comes to watching these fights, and that's where you can separate the casual fan, as we like to say it, from the actual hardcore MMA fan.
For sure. The people who, I've even been in interviews before, like my Shanny Young fight. My last fight was a rematch, right? I've actually, fun fact, rematched every girl that I fought in my Invicta tournament when I fought 3 times in one night. I have rematched each one of those females, and they're the only rematches I have in my pro career, which is crazy. And it was funny. I was in an interview and I was like, well, I have fought her before. And they argued with me. They're like, no, you haven't. And I was like, I was like, yes, I have. Like that kind of stuff. I'm like, just do the basic research. And if you don't know, just don't say it.
Exactly. Okay, that's odd. They're trying to argue with you about something you did.
Yes.
So who's gonna be right?
Talking about, you don't know who you fought.
Now,
Yeah.
who's going to be your main training partners for this camp? Is it going to be any different from past camps? Just due to Jasmine's height, obviously, it's the one glaring thing that she has that 4-inch height advantage.
I mean, everybody I've fought in the last 3 fights has had 4 or more inches height wise against me. Shanny Young was very tall. I think she was around 5'8". Sabina Mazo was super tall. She was like
Yeah.
5'10", like that, and seemed even taller because of her lankiness. Uh, I don't have a worry regardless of height. Honestly, I see it as an easier way to get to their legs if need be, and easier to chop down their legs too. It may feel like the striking, they have more range, but I'm a good inside fighter and I plan on showing that part as well. I have several different training partners I can ask about this camp. I'm not sure exactly who I'll be training with primarily yet, but a lot will be Raquel Pennington. I know that she'll be having hard training coming up for her incoming training camp, which I cannot speak more about than that, but she'll be
Okay.
in training camp, so that'll be good to have her as a partner. I was her training partner for her last camp a lot of the way through. Lauren Murphy, if she comes back out here, she'll be a training partner for this camp. Um, and then, yeah, just a bunch of other girls that I work with on a daily. We have several like higher level pros that train at Pound for Pound Muay Thai, which is where I'm primarily sparring right now, and a lot of them are strikers. And I'm going to also hopefully be working with the Olympic wrestling team coming up in the next couple weeks.
That's awesome. If all goes well next time out versus Jasmine, who do you have your eyes on to crack into that top 10 of the division? We know Vivi Aruja just lost to Amanda Ribas. There's Jennifer Maya against Casey O'Neill happening this weekend in London. Does the winner of that fight excite you at all? What do you think?
For sure. If they would give me the winner of that fight or even the loser of that fight, that would be amazing. And then the Andrea versus Macy fight is very interesting to me as well. Can't remember the date of it, but I know it's coming up soon. So really looking forward to that one as well. I'd love to have the winner of that one, but we'll see what happens.
Of course. Now, a while ago, you mentioned something about training for pro wrestling. Is that still something in the back of your mind at all? Are you still doing those seminars?
I have not been training for the pro wrestling the last few weeks. I've actually just been trying to focus on the fighting right now. It's definitely still in the back of my mind. It's still something that I now have the basics for, and I may want to pursue later in life. Just right now, it's not the thing I want to do. There's a lot of injuries that can come from it, and there's a lot of training partners that are greener and stuff. And it was kind of worrying my coaches. I was starting to get injured here and there, and there's just no sense in it when I could be focusing on what's primary for me right now, and that's fighting. But it's definitely still something in the back of my mind and something that I may pursue once my career starts waning.
Awesome. And last but not least, you always mentioned you're a country girl and how you've always wanted to go back to the countryside after all is said and done. Just curious how that looks ideally in your head at the end of your career. Is it after the pro wrestling if that happens? What's your
I already
ideal
have it
scenario
all
for your
planned out.
future?
I've got down to the date. I won't say that date specifically, but I already have land and a home that I've purchased in Missouri, connected to my dad's farm, actually, or ranch, I should say, to where myself and my husband and future children, whenever we decide to have them, will be raised. So that's where I'll move to, be part of the ranch, be around my family every day, and get to be on the countryside whenever I want. It'll be once my UFC career kind of slows down. I want to at least be 30 probably, and start thinking about family over career at that point.
Awesome. I think we just got one last question. Uh, does Miranda change camps drastically for each opponent, or does she train relatively the same for each camp?
I train relatively the same every single day. So even when I don't have a fight coming up, I'm one of the fighters that stays ready for short notices. I've taken 3 short notice fights out of my, let's see, 6, I think, in the UFC. And I try to stay ready even now. I was ready to get a call for the weekend after, right? Just whenever I needed to fight. And so I continue sparring, I continue doing private lessons, I continue all my technique training. The only thing that changes during my actual fight camps is my private lessons. We might work specific things that that opponent has to offer. Might have to include, say, more wrestling than striking by a lesson or two. And then my sparring just intensifies. That's about it. Everything else remains the exact same.
Excellent. Miranda, tell the people what they can look forward to in this upcoming fight and why you're excited about it specifically.
One, I'm super excited. Regardless of the location, it's going to be in front of an audience, be in front of my fans for the first time, get to see everyone in person, which I'm super excited about. So if you look forward to meeting me, it's vice versa here. I'm happy to see everyone. But on top of that, I'm ready for this fight. I called it out and I'm confident, but beyond confident, I always look at fights kind of statistically and look at it as in what are the ways she can win. And I don't see a single way that she can win other than maybe outpointing me. And so I'm going to have my cardio on point and get ready to go in there and put on a show. I'm hoping to get a fight bonus this time.
I'm sure we're all excited to see you out there again. Best of luck to you. Best of luck in the camp. And I'm sure we'll talk soon. Again, Miranda, thank you so much for being on. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you. If you guys want to check me out, it's Twitter or Instagram at Fear the Maverick. And I also have fearthemaverick.net where you can go get a bunch of gear, whether it be autographed or not. So message me if you want. I'm pretty good at responding to fan messages unless you get stuck somehow in my hidden message requests. And if so, I'm sorry.
I was about to say you also do your drawings as well. So if you guys need a drawing like a portrait or whatnot, Miranda's very talented. Go check out her Instagram and her Patreons too.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Of course. All right, Miranda. We'll talk soon.
Thanks. Bye.